SayItInACard.com is an online greeting card company that caters to every single occasion, and we deliver right to your front door. Visit us today, www.SayItInACard.com. If you feel it, we say it in a card. We have breakup cards, troubled relationship cards, friendship cards, sympathy cards, and of course all of the traditional cards as well, from birthday to holiday. So again, visit us at www.SayItInACard.com. Free shipping for a limited time. Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig the Writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. These are my thoughts in my voice on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. Today I'm speaking with Dennis O'Brien, and some of you may remember him from an episode of Iyanla Fix My Life, and he was on an episode with a few other same-gender loving black men that were victims of sexual trauma, sexual abuse. He's been following me on Instagram, and I posted something recently that caught his attention, and he responded. So I want to share with you what I posted, and then I'll tell you what he said. And so on my Facebook and Instagram, I posted, playing devil's advocate. There are black gay men that have abandoned the black gay community because we hurt them. The church, the family, the black community, even the black gay community. We have to own that. The reality is, not all black gay men left the black gay community because of self-hate or identity issues with their black skin. Some felt forced out by us. Some separated themselves from us because it was too painful to stay. Leaving was best for their own peace of mind and well-being. Nothing is ever completely black and white. So I posted that because, you know, I'm so in love with my blackness, and I'm so in touch with my blackness. I love black people, and I'm for black people. And just because I'm for black people doesn't mean I'm against anyone else, but I'm just for my people. I was thinking one day because, you know, I've noticed in my own personal life some of the issues that I have experienced with dating. And part of it is, and I've said this before, part of it is because the higher you climb, or the more ambitious you are, the more successful you are, it seems virtually impossible to find a partner that's not intimidated by you. And the way that I language it is, the qualities that often draw people to you are often the same qualities that make them insecure once they're in a relationship with you. And so I just was thinking about, you know, so many black gay men that have been punished, if you will, by the black gay community for dating outside of the black community. And in particular, I'm talking about Don Lemon, Karamo Brown, and Billy Porter from Pose. And it's just not always black and white. And as pro-black as I am, I had to try to see things from their perspective. Because it's not always about feeling like you want to be a part of another community. Sometimes it's about feeling pushed out. This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied,
love,
overlooked.
relationships, religion.
This is my life's work.
Religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different.
Every Monday at 10. I wanted to start by saying that I remember seeing you on an episode of Iyanla Fix My Life. And if you could just kind of remind us what that episode was about, because I think there was a piece of it that kind of dealt with sexuality just a little bit.
Oh yeah, it was 5 black men who experienced sexual trauma as kids, and we all identified as gay. But one interesting part about that specific segment was Ms. Van Zandt was trying for us as black men who all experience sexual trauma, coming to terms with our sexual orientation and trying to figure, one, if we saw our gayness first, and two, if we all felt that the sexual trauma resulted in us being gay.
Right.
Fact is, based on the conversation we all had, we all came to the conclusion that we're first black men who identify as gay. Because too often within the black gay community, we say that we're gay black men, which means you put the gayness first. And there's a struggle. So, first disclaimer, Jamaican-born, Caribbean. So I'm always having this huge debate with African American about my gayness and me not wanting to put gayness first. Because when I step out in the world, they see a man first and they see a black man, and then everything else comes after. For me, I can't put my gayness first because it is more than who I am. I'm proud. I'm happy. I may not have a rainbow flag at my door, but I'm a very proud black man who identify as gay.
It's interesting that you lead with blackness, because I've had this conversation with people before, people who identify as LGBTQ plus, and many have said, and I can't say if it was more that identify as black first or gay first. I can't tell you what the ratio is or was, but I've definitely had people say that they identify as gay first because in the eyes of black people, oftentimes the black community puts gayness first. And I've had some LGBTQ plus people who have felt ostracized from the black community because of it, and oftentimes feel extricated from the black community, which leads us to the point of this whole conversation. Because I had posted on my social media, I guess about a month ago, maybe now. I posted on my Facebook.
About a month ago.
It was a month ago. And I had posted it on my Facebook and on my Instagram, just this idea that whenever a black gay person becomes successful, and in the conversation or in the post, I'd mentioned Karamo Brown, Don Lemon. There's a bisexual NFL player whose name escapes me. He just came out of the closet. His partner is white. And then Billy Porter from Pose. Each of those black men are in relationships or married to a white partner. And there's this whole conversation within the black gay community about blackness, and it's almost like a person's blackness is called into question because they find love outside of the black community. Now, of course, for the purpose of this conversation, we're talking about black gay men, but we know that conversation bleeds over to the black community, period. Because I remember when Serena Williams got married, everybody just was upset, that she, found love outside of the black community. She was married to this white guy, and, it was just this outrage. And of course, we know what happens when black men who are successful, usually athletes, and they end up with a white or Hispanic woman. It's all pandemonium. So you commented on that post that I posted on my Instagram, and you said you really wanted to speak on it. And so I said, you know what, we should have a conversation about this.
You hit a core. What I mean, you hit something deep within me. It's as if that statement you made in your post is as though you're having a one-on-one conversation, because I remember a couple of years ago defending Don. And Mark, I don't know Don. I only started following Don because I know that he was also a victim of sexual trauma as a kid growing up. And I got a better understanding of him by reading his story, getting a better understanding of who he is as a man.
You read his book, Transparent?
Yes.
Okay.
And CNN did something, I think about 2 years ago, with all of the anchors, where they went back to their communities where they were born, just for the viewers to have a better understanding of who they are. And Don's story struck to me. And as a survivor of sexual trauma, I struggle in the black gay community. Because too often, I'm either told I'm whitewashed, or I don't identify, or because I'm West Indian, I don't understand the black culture here. And oftentimes, forgive me for being French, bullshit. I came here 18 years ago, and I struggled. I was homeless, and something I've kept for a very, very long time. I've had sex for money, just to survive, because my family decided to ostracize me, to put me in the back corner of hell, for a better word, because of my gayness.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn to love me for who I am. I went out last night for the first time in 2 years since I broke up with my partner. And oddly enough, I actually went out with my partner, with my ex-partner last night. If I say partner again, I actually went out with my ex last night. And it was a bit odd because I purposefully, consciously removed myself from the black gay scene because my brothers weren't supportive of a relationship I was having with another black man, because it wasn't about sex. We were building something together. I bought a home. We had rental units. We even got an Airbnb. We were traveling. We were doing stuff. And what baffled me the most is there were so many other black men who spent countless free time just meddling, just bringing gossip, just finding stories just to destroy us. And yes, the relationship ended. Not just because of the gossip, it ended. And as early as after 7 this morning, I was getting text messages. So y'all back together again? What's up? Back off.
Mm-hmm.
Be good.
How long were you in the relationship?
4 years.
And when did you break up? How long has it been?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, February's gonna make it 2 years ago. Well, we're actually 2 years ago we parted. But it's to be frank, it has been the best breakup I've had today, because it forced me to have an honest conversation with myself. And what I realize is the first person you have to be truthful to is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else. And I had my own demons that I had to come to terms with. There were things I was going through in the relationship that I just didn't want to have those conversations with him. And I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what vulnerability looked like in a relationship until after I stepped outside. I understood what vulnerability is. I was in a relationship with someone and I was lonely. And didn't even know how to explain to him that I was lonely, even with him.
What do you think the source of your loneliness was?
Unresolved issues stemming from my sexual trauma, and me not fully understanding the difference between sex and love.
And when you say your sexual trauma, you mean the trauma that you experienced from, being separated from your family? Is that what you mean?
No. I got raped. I was sexually molested when I was 5 years old. I was raped between 14 to 16, and I got raped again at 21.
Okay. So go ahead.
No. So for me, love was introduced through sex. It was the people who I respected, loved, cared about, who took advantage of me sexually. So as I became an adult, I felt this was just how I looked at the world. If my partners weren't having enough sex with me, it meant they didn't love me enough. Mm-hmm. So no matter how much sex we were having, I would always step on the outside. Or sex was never enough. Because the only defining thing I had that represented love for me was sex. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't my partner's issues. Those were my issues that I had to come to terms with. And what I realized too often in the black gay, and this is not about just sexual trauma, within the black gay community, there's so much issues that us as black men go through, stemming from religion, just the black culture and how black people, black folks treat us, and the things that we accept. I don't go to church for one main reason. I will not sit down in a church and give you my donation and have you preach against me every Saturday or every Sunday.
But sadly, so many black gay men will do it. Not only will they make donations, but they'll volunteer their time to the choir. And
let me tell you something, man. I went to a mega church in Brooklyn about a year and a half ago, and a good sister of mine decided, hey, I'd love for you to fellowship with me. And I'm like, I said, girl, I don't do church.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to go with her. And let me tell you something. I heard the pastor came up with his two sons, and he just went in and started preaching on the gays. But look at the sad part. That was when they were collecting our tithes and offerings. There were so many black gay men that I know for a fact, and I got up and I'm like, I said, this is bullshit. This man and his two sons are standing on a pulpit begging you for money, and he's preaching against you and telling you that your life is a sin and an abomination to God, and y'all taking your monies up and giving to this man and crying.
Not only do they stand up and take their money,
live.
not only do they stand up and take their money, but I've seen people get up and shout and be like, "Preach, pastor!" Like it's like they're agreeing with him. But I know that part of it is because it's what we've been conditioned to believe. You know what I'm saying? Part of it is because that's what we were conditioned. We were raised to believe that. It was ingrained in us. But I want to kind of bring us back to the conversation of dating outside or finding love outside of the black community as a black gay person. Because the point of my post, because you mentioned a couple things. One of the things that you mentioned was Don Lemon. And my respect for him changed as well, but mine changed as a result of seeing him on the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett. And my perspective of him changed because I live in Atlanta. He was living in Atlanta. I don't know if he's between here and New York or not, but I know he was living here at one time. And I used to see him. I used to see him in a restaurant that I worked in many years ago. But he always had an affinity for white guys. And there was a white guy who was my coworker at the time, who was a server, and obviously he and Don had a rapport. Like Don was interested in him. Like they would see each other at the different, gay clubs, but it was like white gay bars. And so this particular coworker of mine, like I said, was a white guy. And he said that Don really liked him, and he told me that he really liked white guys, and then like I said, I had seen him out myself, and whenever I would see him out, it was at a white bar, and so I always felt like he had this. I always had this kind of disdain, maybe too strong of a word, but for lack of a better word, I'll say disdain. I always kind of felt some kind of way about black men, in particular, black gay men, who would not look or even entertain a black man. Many years later, I moved to California. I witnessed it many times in California. There were black gay men that I found myself interested in, or the ones that I would have been interested in because they had something going for them. They were educated, they were ambitious, whatever. They were never interested in black guys. They didn't date black guys. They either dated white or Hispanic. And going back to Don Lemon, my respect for him changed when I saw him on Red Table Talk, and he basically said he was interested in black men, but what happened was he felt forced, and I'm just paraphrasing what he said on Red Table Talk. He said he felt forced at some point to have to date other or outside of his race, because once he reached a certain level financially, once he reached or attained a certain level of education, once he became more ambitious and more successful, he found fewer and fewer black men who were out, who were also on that level, but also comfortable in their skin. And when he said that, it shifted. I was so moved by what he said that I actually took a piece of that and I posted it on I plastered it everywhere on my social media because it resonated with me and I understood it. And just going back to the post that I made on my social media recently that you responded to, there are times that I feel like that. I sometimes feel like I occupy a space that will either force me to date outside of my community or resolve that I will just be one of those people that won't have that long-term relationship. And it saddens me.
It gets you emotional.
Yeah, it saddens me. I'm
very much so.
Yeah, and I'm not it saddens me in the sense, in theory, like I don't sit around, pining over it or thinking about it, but it saddens me because it feels like the more you climb, the more education you have, the more ambitious you become. It's almost like you become kryptonite to black gay men.
Yes.
There's this conversation of, oh, you think you're better. Just that whole
the
thing.
moment you start to have an honest conversation about, so why don't you want more? Why can't you do better? Oh, they use the N-word and say, you think you're better off than me. Oh, you don't understand us in America because you're from the West Indies, you're from the Caribbean. And I'm like, forgive me, I use the N-word back, and I'm like, you were born here. And I understand the system. I work in social services. And let me tell you something. The moment I got my master's degree, I came with a 5-year plan of what is it I wanted for myself. And I decided to buy a house. I remember when I purchased my house, it was an old house. But most people from the outside saw the old house. I saw something bigger, grand, and great. Lucky enough, the first year I bought the house, homeboy came in my life. He was working construction. And I'm like, all right, so we're going to do this. And we took our time, and we built the house together. Income. We started generating income now. We moved from one floor to the second floor, third floor, the basement. We knocked the basement out, and we created an Airbnb. So we're now building wealth for ourselves. I remember traveling to Europe on several occasions, and I was either one of 5 black people on that plane. I remember going to London where the Queen keeps her jewels. I was the only black person in that tour. 2 years ago, I was in Rome. I was but 2 black people in the tour at the Vatican City to see the Sixtine Chapel. And every time I'm traveling, it gets very emotional because I'm like, where are my black brothers? And when I come back home and I'm telling them, hey, this is what I did, we can do it. Oh no. Last night, very typical, New York. I saw young black men just parading like clowns. And I'm sorry for saying it, and I won't even apologize. Acting like clowns, trying to pretend as if they are here and they're nowhere. And I'm like, at what point in time, how long will you sleep on your friend's sofa? How long will you sleep on someone's floor just to try to live that high life? And I remember inviting some young black man who was in my age group when I was 32, who said that he's all about fashion. And I'm like, okay. I said, let us go to Metropolitan Museum and let us view Alexandra McQueen's showing that they're having at the Met. This man said no, and I'm like, but didn't you say you were in fashion? He said, I've never been to a museum before. And I'm like, hold up. There's a Fashion Institute museum in Midtown, and you're in. And I'm like, boo. Are you really the fashion, or are you just trying to pretend that you're trying to be a part of?
And I think it's important to. I think it's important to mention here too that we're not just saying that, like, this conversation is not limited to, as you climb, as you become more successful, as you become more educated. This is also about how black gay men generally approach relationships. So too few of us approach them with a mindset of longevity, of something that's long term. But I really do think that reaches and speaks to systemic things. I really do think that it reaches back to religion. It reaches back to the black community, the black church, because it really has a foundation level of insecurity around relationships. Because on some level, so many of us believe that it's wrong to be gay. So we're not thinking long term. We're not thinking that that potential is there. And so what I'm saying is, when I look at other communities, in particular the white gay community, and this is not at all to say that we need to model white people, because I'm sure there are people that are listening that are thinking just that. And I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is there are some things that we can pay attention to and perhaps learn from, because when you look at their relationships, they approach it with partnership in mind, with with goals of building a home together or going back to school,
Yes.
and one working while the other one's in school, starting a business together.
Yes.
And I'm not at all saying that
Mm-hmm.
their relationships don't have problems. I've never dated a white guy. I've been in a relationship with a white guy, so I can't speak to what happens. I'm not saying that their relationships are flawless, because I'm just reassuring that or saying that over, because I'm sure there's somebody listening thinking, "Oh, it sounds like you're saying." No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying
No.
is,
I can be
generally
honest with
speaking.
you.
Yeah, go ahead.
White men are more receptive in having open-ended, honest, and this is, I'm going to use my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
They're more open to have open-ended, honest conversations about what is it they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I just be honest? If they're looking for fuck, they will just come and tell you point blank, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to sugarcoat it.
Mm-hmm.
My black brother will come like someone, and this is me. I'm as real could be. Hooked up with someone the other day. Came at my house, and his first question is, "So you own all of this?" I'm like, "Yeah, but well, we having this conversation, and we're just gonna fuck."
Right.
And the moment I told this young man that this is all mine, the conversation changed. Why are you single?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want it? No, I don't want it. No, I do not want a relationship. No, rather than you just coming for exactly what you came for, then you start seeing dollars and cents, and you're now seeing 5 years in, because you're now telling yourself, I'm an eligible black bachelor, and you can now give me the best ass since Lifebird came out, and no, you can walk out, and then 2 days after we're now on a date somewhere in Midtown. No, it doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
Great sex don't equal great relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And there has to be honesty in our conversation about what we're looking for. And if you meet someone, and hey, I don't have a problem with retail, because I did retail when I came to this country. I'm simply saying you can't be working Starbucks for 5 years and saying that this is all you want for yourself. Because I need a partner who wants more than 5 years in Starbucks.
And
You
part
may
of
not want a college degree.
right.
And it's okay, because college isn't for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to come to me with more than just that retail, because I want more for myself. And then I sometimes feel as though I need to feel guilty or feel ashamed for having ambition, having desires and dreams. And I'm like, hey, my vacation will no longer be spent going to Sizzle, because that's a fuck fest. And I'm sorry. Anybody who wants to go, keep going, but I've been 3 years with my partner, and I will not do Sizzle no more because it's the fuck fest. But good. But I love the wife, and I love this concept, but Sizzle's a fuck fest.
And you know,
just
to touch on what you were saying a moment ago, just to touch on what you were saying a moment ago about white gay men typically, and of course we're not saying in every single instance or across the board, but
No.
generally speaking, white gay men typically come to the table saying exactly what they want, expressing what they want. But you know, on the other side of it, part of the reason that we are unable to express ourselves and emote is because of how we're raised. Culturally, we're just different. You know, little black boys aren't raised to feel and to say and express and to say that this hurt or you upset me, or they're not allowed to cry. And so we carry that.
Oh, you're a sissy
Yeah.
if you cry or show any form of emotion. Because at 5 years old, I remember falling down from a tree in my yard at 7 years old. My mom said to me not to cry. And I'm like, but I'm in pain. She said, boy, shut up, because you're a man. And it bothered me for years, because I'm like, my mom was telling me at 7 years old that I'm a man.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a man. There's no way I can be a man at 7 years old.
Yeah.
It is a lack of example.
Mm-hmm.
I look up to Keith Boykin a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing something with Keith a couple of years ago. And it was just a pleasure seeing him out last night also. There are few black men that I can literally call their names and say I've seen them with black partners, and I admire them and I want to emulate them. And then there's another issue that too often we don't want to address, and I can say this very, very clearly because I live in this great city called New York. A lot of well-to-do black men who I've met and I've been in certain circles, they're all hooked on drugs. They're functional drug addicts.
Listen, that thing
And
is
it's a
ravaging.
conversation that we don't often want to have.
It is
Our community
ravaging.
is real.
It's ravaging.
Mm-hmm.
It's ravaging the
Yep.
black gay community, and it's not just. And you didn't say any particular drug, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it's Tina, aka cocaine, and this meth.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
it's and you know, and people say to me all the time, well, Craig, you know, you're doing this, you're that, you know, why are you single? You know, I've literally been single for 8 years because I refuse to settle. I refuse to lower the bar. I refuse to shrink in a relationship. I refuse to date down again. I've done it before,
Yes.
and I'm in a space now where where I'm clear that there's a difference, there's a distinction between compromising and settling. And so
Yes.
one of the
And I
things that you
refuse to
said a
settle
moment,
too.
go ahead, what?
No, I refuse to settle. I'm not, because too often, because I have friends who ask me, so why aren't you dating again? Believe me, in my 2 years break, I have attempted to date.
Mm-hmm.
And I've attempted to date men who are on my level. And I will either select you based on your educational level or your financial level.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sorry, I cannot date a man in his 40s who's doing retail. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because that income can't do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy my European trips. I enjoy going to the Caribbean. And I'm sorry, but working the gap on H&M.
Now, what do you
it
say
means
to the people that are
I'm gonna
listening?
have to be doing that.
What do you say to the people that are
Huh?
listening? What do you say to the people that are listening that says, well, you know, you just need to be able to take care of yourself. What, as long as I'm able to take care of me, what does that have to do with you? Because somebody is
Well,
listening
I
and
live
thinking
in
that.
New- Well, for that person, I will just simply say, because I've done enough retail jobs in this city, you ain't getting that much money. I'm sorry. And for the life that I've gotten myself accustomed to, no retail job can come nowhere close to me. So I'm sorry, people, be good. No, it's just not going to happen. And I'm not making a compromise on that.
And is it because
whoever
you feel
calls
like
me
you're
arrogant or call me,
is it because you feel like
because
you're
I feel like-
going to have to pick up the slack? Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have picked up the slacks too many times. I have bought too many first class tickets. I have spent too many money paying for travels here and there. And no, let me tell you something. I don't have a problem treating my man. It's the least of my trouble. It is when my man decides for the next 3 years, I'm going to stay stuck right here and I'm not moving. That is my problem. When you've now become accustomed to the lifestyle that I've introduced you to, but you've told yourself, you've convinced yourself that I will stick in this retail job because I have someone else who will take care of me and maintain me. I'm too young to be nobody's sugar daddy. I'm sorry. Especially someone who's in their late 30s or 40s. No, I ain't no sugar daddy for nobody that age. If I meet a young black man in his 20s who is doing retail, my first conversation to him is, so are you going back to school? And if you choose not to go back to school, what skill set outside of retail are you going to go looking for? And if he can't answer those questions, it is a waste of time. I'm looking for more than a quick fuck. I have fucked enough in my life. I'm good. If I don't fuck for the rest of my life until I die, I'm good. I'm looking for someone who I can bask in the sun somewhere in Bermuda. I can sit somewhere on the South of Paris, just sitting down, having fun. I've never traveled without going to museums. I'm looking for that. And if anybody who thinks that that is too much for them for a bar to meet me yet, no. And as I was saying to you before, in my 2 year stint, being single, trying to date, the men who I've seen on my level, when I've hanged out with them, I've gone to their place, I've seen too many crack pipes. And baby, I'm walking through that door because I'm not. And I can say that because as a young man who got raped at 21, moved to New York, I've had enough coke snort off my dick. I've had enough coke snort off my chest because that's all I knew. And that is a lot of pain. That's a lot of unresolved issues. And because I took the time to fix my own shit, I'm not going to take on anybody that's going to have that much deep baggages in any relationship, because money don't fix that. You have to come to terms with you. What I told you, this relationship I just walked out of has been the best breakup ever because I took the time to work on me.
Well,
Wasn't
two
about
things
him.
that you said. One of the things that I wanted to go back to was when you mentioned before about the relationship that you had that ended 2 years ago. you said that there were so many gay men around you that were picking and pulling at the relationship
Oh,
to the
Jesus.
point that it actually broke up. And I've said on countless times that gay relationships are oftentimes very much so like celebrity relationships in the sense that as soon as people find out about it, they're pulling at it. They're going harder at you.
Hmm.
They're going harder at him, trying to figure out where the weak
Yep.
link is so that they can pull it apart. And so I'm
For the weak part. Yep.
for that reason, I'm very private. I'm very, very private when it comes to my dating or my
No
relationship.
posts.
And then the other
No,
part
no,
of
none. Nobody knows none.
right, the other part of what you said, that keeps resonating for me, and I've said this countless times before too. Gay men and women, whether it's black women, oftentimes, we have like a significant female friend that we're really close to. And I have said so many times before that on the surface, ostensibly, I think most people think that gay men and women get along so well because we have similar interests, like you were talking about the shopping and traveling and all of
Hmm.
those things. But I think it's something underneath that. Yeah, that's on the surface, but underneath that, the common denominator, the common thread, is our similar experiences in dating other black men. We have
Yeah,
similar
yeah.
frustrations, similar heartaches, similar disappointments. Because women, black women that have that are accomplished, that are standing on their own, that are independent, they have some of the same struggles that we have. And the root is black men.
Hear what I've seen so far in the media. I've seen too many men, black gay men. God, I want to say something and not offend anybody or not come across as being homophobic as a gay man, which is so messed up. But I'm trying to find the right words how to say it to not really come off too horrible. I'm not seeing a balance. Let me use that word. I'm not seeing a balance in terms of what the image that I want to see. I don't see enough of me and my friends. So I travel to Toronto quite often because most of my friends live in Toronto. And the black gay men that I interact with in Toronto, in London, in Paris, I don't see enough of us being represented on the TV. Because guess what? Not all black men are feminine or flamboyant.
Mm-hmm.
Not all black men are into drugs. Not all black men just do retail or just into fabulous fashion. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
smiling on that one because that's very subjective. And not all black men just want to just fuck everybody that is around the corner.
Right.
There are many, many other black men who I know, and it's not just about education, who they desire so much more than the image that is being put on the outside. And the younger generation. So I work in the social service system, and I work mainly with just black and brown boys because I feel I have a responsibility to show to them that if I can, you can also. And especially when I get a case with a black young gay guy or a Latino gay guy, I'm like, hey, you're more than your gayness. You're way much more than that. You have dreams and aspiration, and don't let anybody settle you, define you just based on your gayness. And that's the root. Too many of us, and I have to say us because I'm a part of this community, and because I was once there, too many of us is trapped in this idea, this notion that everything that revolves around us has to be about our gayness. And we're much more than that. We have, as a community, as black gay men, we have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I went to New
Discretionary
York
income.
Gay Pride. Yep, I went to Gay Pride in June, and it was World Gay Pride. And let me tell you something, man. I screamed and I showed when I went to Christopher Street with my friends because guess what? There was no space for black gay men. And I was angry because I was in Toronto Gay Pride the week before we had our World Gay Pride. I was in London's Gay Pride also, and I'm like, we had a free concert in London, in Canada, but we had nothing for our black gay men in this great city called New York. And the sad part is, most are literally all the clubs probably charge about 50% more for coverage. Now, these young black kids who just want to experience what it's like to be in a brotherhood, be in a setting of just men who identify as gay, and they can't even afford $30 to go into a club or $50 to go into a club. Where a 21-year-old man who's working at H&M, where he gonna find that from? And then you're gonna charge $21 for a drink, and that's cheapest.
All right, but here's the thing. But part of what happens too, though, is those prices are inflated because we, black gay men, aren't the club owners. So we're renting the space. We may be the promoter. We're renting the space, and so in order for us to make money, we have to drive the price of the cover charge. But let's go back to this other thing that you had mentioned, because you were saying that there's no representation or very little representation of black gay men like yourself that's represented on television. And part of it is there are too few of us black gay men that are in the writer's room of these television shows. That's A. B is there are too few shows that are about us that have been greenlit to even be put on television. Then C is we have very few out black gay men that are actors that are willing to play those roles. And then D would be when we have heterosexual black men to play those roles, many of them refuse to play the roles because the black community as a whole will then start to question whether or not they're gay. So there are a lot of reasons why that happens. But what I wanted to do was go back to what we were talking about in terms of like abandoning the black gay community, because a part of what I had written in that post was let me frame it this way. There is a show called The Four. It's a singing competition show where Puffy, Sean Diddy Combs was one of the judges. Well, about 2 seasons ago, there was an episode that I had watched, and there was a singer on there, a black guy, really, really dark-skinned guy from South Carolina, named Vincent. And he is an incredible singer. And I remember just being mesmerized. Like, this literally was the first time that I watched the show. And I remember being mesmerized by him. And I could tell that he was going to get on this stage and really sing, because they had this whole package about him. They showed his family back home in South Carolina. And he had like this down home family and I can't remember what part of South Carolina, but I'm willing to bet that they were like really like Gullah type. Because I mean, it was almost like in the country. It was like in the backwoods, and it was just like really, really down to earth, down home, like black folks. But then when they showed the other part of his package, how he had moved to California, he was living in West Hollywood. All of his friends that were in the audience that were supporting him were white. He had, and like I said, this guy Vincent was very dark skinned. He had these either hazel colored contacts or gray colored contacts, and he has his hair bleached blonde. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like he is just, I immediately started thinking about all of the black men that when I lived in LA that I was interested in that just did not see it for black men. And I remember thinking he's probably one of those that only dates white men. But when I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and I said to my friend, I said, I really want him to win. I want him to win this competition. And my friend said to me, he said, I don't. He said, because if he wins, he's not going to make music for us because we hurt him. And when he said we hurt him, it began this ripple effect for me, because I started to think about his cousins, maybe his uncles, his dad perhaps. And I'm just thinking, I don't know this to be true, but I just remember thinking his schoolmates, who were probably all black people, who taunted him as a little gay boy, who called him sissy, fag, punk, beat him up, spit on him. And again, I don't know if any of that is true. But I'm thinking, and it may not be the case with him, but he was a proxy for me. He was a proxy for all of the black gay boys who felt forced to leave the black gay community because we hurt them. And so going back to what we were initially talking about, that's why in some cases, some black gay men choose to date outside of the community because we hurt them. And we have to own that. We have to own that. We can't just be so quick to say, oh, they're snow queens or this, that, and the third. Like, we have to own that.
We can't dismiss them we have to own the narrative. So outside of me working in social services, I run a nonprofit that deals with black men who have gone through sexual trauma. Obviously, I'm black, so I tend to advocate for black men.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember 2 years ago just wanting to just throw the towel in. Reason being, it was the men who I went out for. It was the men who I bought a big house because I remember being homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering sleeping on the train from one stop to the next. Remember sleeping in Prospect Park in Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
Remember having sex for money because I had nowhere to go. So my trade for sex wasn't because I wanted the money. I had nowhere to sleep and I had no food. So sex was the easiest thing for me to do. So everything I did in terms of me going back to school, me creating an organization, me buying a big house, was because I wanted to help someone like me. Because I know there's so many like me out there. But hear what? Other hurt people hurt other hurt people. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
And I've opened my home so many times, and it is the people who I've opened my door to who turn around and hurt me. It is the people who I've introduced in my relationship, not sexually, just introduced my partner to say, hey, X is going through X, and I think we should help them. And these are the people who they will see issues going on in my home that will bring everything back on the outside. And I'm a very private person. And I questioned 2 years ago, should I continue doing what I'm doing? It is a struggle. It is a fight. I am committed. I am dedicated to my cause because there are still many young boys like me who still need help, who still need support, who need a guidance. But I've taken several steps backwards. I will not open my home to anyone again, and that's just a fact. And many of my friends are like, but no, I'm just not going to do it because home is my sanctuary. Home is where I need to be my freest. And I will not risk bringing someone in my home ever again to violate my space and to bring everything that I have shielded from the world outside and use against me. It's just never going to happen. I've not put a wall. I put a barrier. I want to date, but I don't see myself dating a black man again, and I'm sorry.
Now, part of that I want you to elaborate on that. I want you to elaborate on that part because when you commented on my social media, on my Instagram that day, you had said something to the effect of you felt pushed away or out of the black gay community.
Yes, I feel pushed away because I have ambition, and I have dreams, and I have goals. And I hate when people keep saying I'm coming across as whitewash. I don't understand the black culture. And I'm like, what? Should we not be educated? Should we not want to own properties? Should we not want to go on vacation outside of Sizzle, outside of Atlanta Pride, outside of DC Pride? No, come on, man. I'm 39. And I should be going to all of these Black Pride every single year. And I have to say this. These promoters aren't doing anything for us.
And not just these pride events.
It's not even
just the pride events though. It's the white party in DC and the white party in Atlanta, the white party in LA. It's like at some point, like when do you grow beyond that? When do you want more than that? And that's why I was saying earlier, sometimes I really feel like I just may be one of those people that won't have that long-term relationship because I just can't seem to find someone who's not interested in doing that any longer. Like, I mean, I did it in my 20s. I did it in my early part of my 30s. But it's like, now that I'm 43, like, there are other things that I want to do. It's like, move on, move beyond that, and let the next generation come in and enjoy that.
Yes.
And I just feel like there's so many of us, so many black gay men, there's so many black gay men that suffer from the Peter Pan syndrome. It's like they just don't want to grow up.
Yeah. I went out last night and I saw this young man, and I've known him for a good 15 years, and I'm like, I'm like laughing because I'm like, you haven't grown up. You're still trying to be this fuck boy, and I'm like, big man, where will that big dick take you? Nowhere. You're still struggling after all these years. Seriously.
But
And
do you
all
think
you have
that
to show about.
do you think that part of some of that, like that refusal to grow up or whatever, do you think that that is also like indicative of some sort of a pain? Like we were talking earlier about like
Oh hell yes.
some of
Oh
these
hell yes.
guys that get
Let me
caught
tell you
on
something.
drugs, these guys that get caught on drugs, they're
You
responding to a pain.
you can't address shame without vulnerability. They both come hand in hand together. I followed you for quite a while, even before I made my comment on your post.
Okay.
I've admired your journey and who you are. No, I'm even seeing you doing the gym thing and losing weight and getting all fit. I
Thank
remember
you.
that journey for me because I struggle with body dysmorphism,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always felt I'm fat, I'm unattractive.
Mm-hmm.
Yet again, this relationship taught me to spend quality time with me. I can have these open-ended, candid conversations with you, and we're total strangers,
Mm-hmm.
and I can be vulnerable in this moment because guess what? I no longer have the shame I had a while back about my story, my journey.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to terms with who I am as a person. Don't feel no way. I was that fuck boy who just believed that, hey, guess what? I'm Jamaican with a big dick, so guess what? Everybody wants some dick, and I must fuck every ass in town just because.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I, as a man, have to place more value within myself as an individual because I'm much more than that. It is a conversation that we need to have with ourselves. It's conversation like these because, Marky, we're not bashing anybody now. We're just having an open-ended dialogue about possibilities and why is it people do the things that they do. And hopefully more people can have these conversations. That's all it takes. An honest, real conversation tackling these issues. You're in a relationship and 5 years there's no growth.
Right.
But you decide to stay in it because you're fearful of failing. I was in one relationship for 5 years and I stick out for 5 years. Why? I didn't want to face the shame to say I failed at another relationship again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This last one, my partner and I decided that we needed a break. And we were able to have those honest conversations and know, looking back at things, to be able to sit across from him and not have a fight, not have these long-winded debates about crap. And I said to him there, I said, why couldn't we have these kind of conversations when we're together? And all he said, just a simple response, he said, hey, I think we had too much things on our table and we never took the time to spend enough time with ourselves. We were so caught up in this relationship and focusing on us, we didn't spend enough time to deal with us. So I'm still in love with him and I'm happy for where we are at right now because we're spending time with us. I'm okay with being single. And I also had a fear in not being in a relationship because I'm like, but I'm successful, I have this, so why should I not? And then my best friend would always say to me, there's nothing in that rule book that says that you must be in a relationship. He said, why not just spend some time with you?
Mm-hmm.
We need to have more open-ended conversations with our black brothers regarding the trauma that we face on a daily basis in each of our respective, whether or not you're African American, you're coming from directly from Africa, you're coming from the Caribbean, we're all a part of this diaspora. And believe it or not, culturally, we're all treated the same.
But it's important to have this
And we have to-
conversation. It's important for
Yes.
black men to have this conversation, but we have to be able to figure out a way to have the conversation without people getting so easily offended. Because this particular conversation, sometimes I think black gay men feel attacked when the truth is spoken. Like when we speak the truth
Yes.
of certain things, whether it's, sometimes we're, hypersexualized, whenever we're speaking that truth, a lot of times we don't want to hear it and we want to muzzle a person for speaking that truth, especially when we talk about the difficulties or the trials in terms of trying to date. And oftentimes people say, well, it's not that hard. Well, what are you doing wrong? Like, what kind of choices are you making? It's not always about my choices. It's about what's available to me. So it's not always about the choices. It's about the work, the inner work that we as a community have to do individually. And a lot of us are not doing that inner work, that soul searching work, and undoing that trauma. And it's like it's about an unconditioning of a conditioning of thinking. It's like it's almost like, and I've said this in I believe I said it in my first book, or it may have been my second book. We have to reteach ourselves the things that we taught ourselves while we were hiding in the closet.
Yes.
Because when we were in that closet, most of us were in that closet learning how to cheat, how to sneak, how to lie, and how to get over. But for the sake of getting over on our family and friends, because we didn't want anybody to know that we were gay or that we were bisexual or whatever the case is. So we were becoming so clever. And then what happens is when many of us came out of that closet, we didn't know how to shut that behavior off, and we continued to be deceptive liars about everything.
Because that's all we know.
That's all we know.
I was in Jamaica for Easter, and a lot of my young guys in Jamaica know me, and oftentimes they will just want to just give me sex just because. And I'll turn it down. And my reason for turning it down is I think as an older black gay man, I have a responsibility to the younger generation.
Right.
And I made a post, and I know a lot of people got angry and pissed at me. The post was, it is important for older black gay men to start to be more supportive, more understanding, and start guiding our younger men rather than inviting them home and fucking them.
Oh my God, it's interesting because I wrote an open letter saying something very similar to that probably about 4 years ago. And I basically started off by saying, I apologize, or I'm sorry that we weren't there for you in the way that we should have. Because oftentimes what happens is, as we get older, some of us are trying to hold on to youth, and some have this insatiable desire to try to fill this need of whether or not they still have it. And so they, instead of taking a young gay boy under their wings and trying to teach them and show them the ropes, they fucking them instead.
Yes. And what we're doing is we're repeating a cycle.
Exactly.
Because he is going to grow up. And here where the hurt comes in now. Because too often we're in a position where we can help. And I know, because I'm in a position where I can help and I can give more than just a quick fuck. I can guide and I can give money. I can tell you that this is what you need to do, give you support. I'm doing my community a disservice. And what we also need to do, me and you, we're not too far in age. We also have to call out our friends who are doing exactly what we don't believe they should be doing. And if it means that homeboy that we've been friends with for 15 years, all they're doing is picking up these young trades and just bringing them home and just fucking them.
We got to hold each other accountable. Yeah, we got to hold each other accountable. And everything is not funny. Everything is not to be celebrated. And everything is not to be like, oh my God, you had him. You had him. What was it like? We have to start holding each other accountable and saying, okay, listen, it's not okay to be fucking these strangers, these random strangers, and bringing these people to your home and, fucking these young boys. And, we have to start holding each other accountable.
And if it means that we're going to give up the friendship, let me tell you something. I had one particular friend who had come on my board, and I know for a fact whenever he goes back to Jamaica, he will mess around with these young teenage boys. And I said to him, I'm going to have to end the friendship. Not only end the friendship, but I'm going to have to take you off my board. And he said, why? I said, because who you are as a man doesn't align with the value system that I have accepted for myself. And not only that, the mission and vision of the organization that I run. You can't be on my board, and when you go on vacation, that's what you do.
Right.
It is a crime. It is rape. These are young kids, and I don't care whether or not they can handle it or they're open. You are an older black gay man, and you know better, and you need to do better. And because you refuse to, I'm gonna have to separate. I'm gonna have to step
because
aside.
that R. Kelly stuff.
Because
that R. Kelly stuff happens in the gay community too.
Oh hell yes, it does.
It does. For the sake of everybody listening, would you please tell them what your profession is?
Oh God, I'm a behavioral specialist. I'm a writer. I'm an advocate. I run an organization that deals with black men who are victims of sexual trauma.
What's the name of the organization?
The O'Brien Dennis Initiative.
Okay. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really appreciate it, and I really hope that this is going to enlighten some people. And instead of them attacking, hopefully they'll hear what we're saying and not be offended. Because I think sometimes we listen for the sake of refuting. You know, we're not really listening to learn and to grow and to build. But thank you so much for this.
They will say, hey, it's not coming from a white guy, so it don't mean nothing.
Right. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, man.
You're welcome. And if this is your first time listening to So Much to Say podcast, please be sure to hit the like button or hit subscribe. We drop a brand new show each and every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Visit www.craigthewriterstewart.com. Be safe. Keep loving yourself. One of the best parts of life is when you can admit the truth to yourself about yourself. Cyberspace is a world where one can become something he isn't, but everything he dares to be. I wasn't interested in getting attached to anyone, and I knew I wouldn't take anyone I met online seriously. I had multiple screen names to increase my chances of meeting someone attractive. The majority of the profiles noted HIV negative under status, but I knew better from the work I had done in the HIV community. I knew 1 out of 3 black gay men was positive. The messages I found in my inbox validated me in my depression. In some strange way, they reinforced that I was worthy and deserving. My days consisted of waking up and logging on to see how many messages had accrued overnight. Months passed before I got honest with my therapist about what was happening with me. And before I knew it, I heard myself say, I've been having sex with people I meet online. To listen to more of Words Never Spoken in Memoir, visit audible.com. I was involved briefly with a married man who believed he had the courage to leave his wife to be with me and to live his truth. This isn't the typical story of a married man promising to leave his wife for a secret lover. Rather, this is a story in part about a gay man who knew he was gay before he got married, but chose to marry a woman because he didn't know how to break free. Rocky and I met on a gay social media site 3 months after I returned to the East Coast to live, and just 11 months after he was married. At the time we met, he was living and working in Dubai as a contractor for the government on a military base, while his wife was stationed in Tallahassee, Florida, where they had a home. In one of the first messages he sent me, Rocky shared that he was married, but that he had regrets. He explained that he had come out to his mother and siblings when he was 18 years old. He sat there. To listen to more of One Thing for Certain, Two Things for Sure, a memoir continued, visit audible.com.